Something that's become more and more prevalent in games as graphics have improved and facial capture technology has increased in detail are digitized actors. Getting performers in not just to voice characters, but have their faces and performances mocapped and transplanted into the title as if the game itself was actually filmed in real life on a set. When you stop to think about this for 5 minutes, it makes all of about 0 sense. Video games have the liberty of being able to make a character look like whatever they want. Immerse the player, as it were, into a new world with fewer ties to ours. It's an advantage this medium has over film and TV. In most big movies, you just kind of have to accept the fact that the random guy in the story you're viewing also looks like a famous celebrity who's been in other things. Games don't have to overcome that hurdle, which is why when you put an actor's face on a character, it's just adding a disconnecting element to that pretend person that need not exist. That fictional character could be a completely unique and separate person from anyone in our reality, but now he has the face of that one guy I've seen in this other show for some reason. I mean, if the protagonists in the games that did this had original character designs, it wouldn't detract from anything. On the contrary, it would probably be way less distracting to the overall goals the story has. When actors portray characters on film, the idea is that they want to try and make you believe as much as possible that they're a different person. In games they have it way easier, yet doing this one-to-one style facial motion capture feels like throwing a spanner in the works towards achieving that goal. I mean, just think about some of your favorite game characters. Now imagine if they just had the face of a celebrity actor. It would feel weird, wouldn't it? It would kind of take away something. Well, these new original characters might be what we're missing out on when these faces get used. It precludes your character from becoming iconic in its own right. When you see a lineup of famous game characters on websites, you don't really usually see the CG version of a real-life actor. It just feels a tinsy bit out of place. Like we have Solid Snake, Dante, Samus Aran, and Shawn Ashmore. See, that's just, Of course, the reason this is done is obvious. Celebrities create buzz, and having one's face in your game is gonna widen the demographic. There's also that nagging feeling, that sort of underlining element of trying to legitimize the medium by shoehorning stars from a more established one into ours, which I can't believe we haven't grown out of yet, but I'm gonna try and put that to one side, because that is a whole other can of worms.
It's not a game script, it's a script.
Don't get too dead set on thinking this is a rant, though. This choice can be used effectively, and there are some examples where I think it does work somewhat, where the benefits outweigh the challenges the gimmick presents. Where I feel like we're getting into some awkward territory is with Kojima's new game, Death Stranding. Kojima's influences are no secret. Everything he mentions as inspirations on his work are movies, never games. Over time, I think this has given him an interesting outside perspective on the medium, allowing him to play with the conventions of games to an interesting effect. But now it's starting to get a bit silly. Starting with Kojima wanting to replace fan-favorite Snake's voice actor David Hayter for years with a more established performer, which led to Kiefer Sutherland being shoehorned into MGS as his awkward replacement, to now this obsession with showing off which actor friends he has in this new title before any gameplay has even been determined. This feels like a really weird way to start off an IP. Instead of creating some new, uniquely designed character to be the protagonist of this soon-to-be series, we have Norman Reedus and Guillermo del Toro winking and nudging their way onto screen with Mads Mikkelsen rounding it off as the villain. And I'm not saying any of these guys are bad actors or bad artists, but like, when did announcing a voice actor's face in a new upcoming title become more important to divulge than what the gameplay is even going to be or what the title is even about? Why is this kind of thing supposed to get me excited to play a video game? On the other hand, we have series like Yakuza, which in recent entries have started including the faces of real Japanese crime film actors as villains in the games, with the latest in the franchise, Yakuza 6, featuring legendary Nippon gangster flick star Takeshi Kitano. Instead of the game feeling like it's depending on the actors to exist, Yakuza already has its own legendary cast, so it feels like a joining of two strong forces in the Japanese crime genre instead of the actors holding the entire thing up, being used to establish the whole enterprise like they are in Death Stranding. And like, I get it, it's a nice wink to the audience, oh, this last project that failed, with Guillermo and Reedus, now they're in this new game, haha, let's yuck it up, Konami suck, but it doesn't change the fact that it feels kinda shallow. When something like Yakuza 6 makes a character a popular actor, it feels like the developers are just asking, who would it be cool for our established fictional cast members to team up with or go up against? How about Takeshi fucking Kitano? That's a super culturally relevant and poignant choice to round off our series with. When Death Stranding does it, it feels like they're saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have a bunch of famous actors in our game because they're recognizable and it will make us stand out as, avant-garde and different? I mean, apparently someone else will be mocapping and voicing Del Toro's character, which means they literally just stuck his mug on someone else to have his face in the game. It helps that Yakuza is like the most video game of all time and doesn't give two craps about aspiring to movie greatness, so it comes off as super earnest, while Death Stranding is a game that hasn't even shown us any game yet. Now, I'm not saying Death Stranding won't be good. Despite how much I disliked MGS5, Kojima has still made some of my favorite games, and I'm not going to write him off just yet. But I wonder if Death Stranding is going to reach that same iconic level as Metal Gear if it's parading around a bunch of famous faces that might eventually just date the game, and give its story a kind of flash-in-the-pan quality reserved for titles like Quantum Break or Beyond Two Souls. You also run the risk of ending up like Onimusha, which weirdly enough doesn't seem to get re-releases or HD collections, so we can get some better performance out of those old games, because perhaps all the faces they used in those games want to be paid again for the use of their likenesses. But I mean, that's just a theory. At least Onimusha's pretty schlocky, with time-traveling John Reno getting demon powers and hanging out with fairies and shit. So at least it's not supposed to be taken super seriously like the new Call of Duties that think I'm going to sincerely buy CGI Kit Harington as evil spaceman Commando. When Silent Hill 2 hired unknowns to personify and inspire the likenesses in its cast of downtrodden regular folk, it worked brilliantly, and it's easy to see why the choice paid off. They weren't doing it to show off, but because they wanted to create the most believable characters possible. Death Stranding feels like the complete opposite of that. Look at these famous faces, get excited! Kojima's gonna have to do a good job to make sure these protagonists are remembered as cool, unique characters and not just as Norman Reedus and Mads Mikkelsen. And that in and of itself is kind of the issue with this whole gimmick. You're just giving yourself extra work when trying to craft some believable characters. And unless you're willing to put in that work or have a good reason outside of I want to show off my famous friends, it's just gonna look like a shallow ploy for attention to me. Because at the moment, it just kind of sounds like Kojima hired these guys for the banter.
So for Death Stranding, when I told him that I would be contacting Norman for this, he looked a little bit sad, a little bit lonely. I asked him, would you like to perform in the game? And he agreed, so that's how it went.
Hey everybody, sorry for the sporadic videos again at the moment. I was working on a really big video that's taken a while and I wanted it out soon, but at the moment it's clear it's going to take quite a bit more time than expected. So I thought I'd give you a little something to chew on while I'm making that. Thanks for watching and stay tuned. It's going to be a good one.
And like Snake said in MGS, Hideo knows that a strong man doesn't need to read his future, he makes his own. You've always been there for me, and you have never disappointed me.
I thank you all for your support. I love you, Jeff.